Alright everybody, it's that time again. Grab some chips, grab some popcorn, grab something to eat, and grab a drink, and go ahead and lean or sit back because I got another long but another good battle, and this time it's going to be a UU one that I had against 10Vivman, and I'm using that really fun UU team that I uploaded with on Saturday, I believe. And the general idea behind this team was that I really wanted to use Registeel, I really wanted to use Slowbro, and I really wanted to use Specs Rotom Cut. So I then just threw in Scarf Victini for some Volt Turn action with Rotom, then I threw in Umbreon and Hitmontop to be able to take hits that Registeel and Slowbro cannot take. But looking at my opponent's side of the field, there actually really wasn't anything that I saw to be too threatening. So going into this battle, I knew that I wanted to be able to get rid of Hitmontop so I could get on my rocks. So that's really the only mindset I have going into this battle. That and nothing on his team appreciates a Specs Rotom Cuts Leaf Storm. So I lead off my Rotom. As it leads off with the Victini, I'm going to make a safe switch into my Slowbro just because I don't want to take a U-turn, and I really do not want to take a V-Crit. As he does go for the U-turn, that does entirely way too much damage to max defense, max HP Slowbro, which automatically tells me that Victini is banded, and that now has become a massive threat because with the proper prediction, Victini can literally just plow through my team. And due to the fact that I don't have a spin block, or even if I get rocks up, Hitmontop is freely going to be able to spin them away. So he U-turns out into Porygon 2. Obviously I don't want to take a Thunderbolt, so I switch into my Umbreon as he makes a double switch into his Victini. I'm going to go straight for the Protect, scout it to see what he wants to lock himself into, and it turns out that it's U-turn, so I make a safe switch into my Hitmontop because obviously I don't want to bring in Registeel because if I do get up rocks, he'll spin them away. So either way, Hitmontop was my better switch in. As he U-turns out into the Slowbro, I am now going to be able to go for the Toxic because I know I should easily be able to take one Side Shock, and Slowbros nowadays don't tend to carry Psychic, so I really wasn't too worried about that. And even if he did go for the Skull to try and burn me, I do have Heal Bell, and I have Wish on my Umbreon, so I really actually was not scared about anything that the Slowbro could do to my Hitmontop. And it turns out that his Slowbro was actually Specs, which I was not expecting whatsoever, but knowing that he more than likely would go for a Surf or a Fire Blast and not the Psychic or Side Shock, I'm just going to make a safe switch into my Umbreon. And due to the fact that my whole team is practically at full HP, my best and safest play to go for is going to be the Foul Play. I mean, yes, I could have gone for the Wish on the off chance that maybe he brought in like Porygon 2 or something, but I still thought Foul Play would be my better play as he brings in the Sableye. Unfortunately, I get a crit, which actually really helps me out because now I can bring in my Victini as he goes for the recover, allow me to go for a free U-turn and U-turn on now into this massive ass threat which is known as Rotom Cut. And I'm going to click Leaf Storm and watch something on his team get destroyed or take a massive amount of damage. So he brings in the Porygon 2 and I do an easy 60%. Good lord! Oh, my jaw literally dropped when I saw how much damage that did to a Porygon 2. Now, because I am at -2, I'm not going to be able to take him out with another Leaf Storm. So what I'm going to do is actually make a switch into my Registeel, knowing that he more than likely would bring in either Hitmontop, Rhyperior, or Victini, which is why I'm actually going to pull a double switch into my Slowbro, expecting one of those three. As he does bring in the Rhyperior, I know that he's going to be fearing a Scald, but really my Scald is the best play to go for, considering that I could possibly burn something on his team. So as he brings in the Porygon 2, I get off a decent bit of damage, no burn though, which isn't a big deal. So knowing that he more than likely would go for a Thunderbolt, and maybe he also could be carrying the Toxic, so I could synchronize that over, I know my Umbreon is my best switch in that, and if he does want to make another double switch into his Victini, I can just protect this guy to see what he wants to lock himself into. But as he goes for the Thunderbolt, he gets the 10% paralysis, which was actually really annoying. And by this point, I know you guys have noticed that he doesn't have Download and he doesn't have Trace, which means he has Analytic. And if I'm not mistaken, if a Pokemon with Analytic goes second, their damage output is increased by 30%, which means the fact that he got the paralysis and me synchronizing it over to him is actually going to end up helping him out because now Porygon 2 is going to be doing a bit more damage with every attack. So I go for the Wish as he brings in the Sableye. I don't really have to go for the Protect because I know that he more than likely is just going to go for the Taunt or the foul play on the off chance that I do bring a Victini, so I'm just going to stay in, get off a decent bit of damage with my own foul play. Then this turn, expecting him to bring in Porygon 2 or the Hitmontop, I'm going to make a switch into my Rotom as he does bring in the Hitmontop. Even if he wants to go for the Sucker Punch, I know I can easily take one, so I'm still just going to click Leaf Storm and get off a heavy hit on anything that he wants to bring in. As he brings in the Victini, I do almost 50%, which, much like the Porygon 2, my jaw just dropped, because Victini has 100 base stats across the board, so the fact that Leaf Storm did that much damage was actually pretty surprising to me. And this turn, thinking that he would go for a V-Create, I decided to bring in my Victini, that way I could U-turn on out on whatever he decided to switch in. But no, he does end up going for the Bolt Strike, thinking I would bring in my Slowbro, and that does a pretty good amount of damage to my Victini. But because I am faster, I know I can just safely go for the U-turn as he makes a safe switch into his Porygon, not Porygon 2, wow. As he makes a safe switch into his Hitmontop, I'm going to U-turn out back into my Rotom, and I'm going to go straight for the Leaf Storm as he actually ends up leaving in his Hitmontop. And unfortunately, I actually end up getting a crit, but as you can see from the damage calc, this crit maybe mattered. I mean, I know it's only like an 8% chance of me taking him out, but still, I don't know. I still could have got absolute maximum damage, and I might have not, so I don't really know what to say about that. But I make a stupid misclick, and I meant to bring in my Slowbro and not my Victini, and I was not paying attention, and I just lose my Victini, which was my biggest momentum gainer in this battle, because every time I brought in Victini, I could just go for U-turn and U-turn on out into my Rotom, and unfortunately I cannot do that now. So I'm going to bring in the Rotom as he brings in the Sableye. The one time I don't go for Leaf Storm, Sableye ends up living the Volt Switch and burning my Rotom, which isn't too big of a deal, as I make a dumb play by bringing in my Hitmontop. And obviously, because the way I brought in Hitmontop, the fact that I wanted to go for the Toxic was so painfully obvious that I should have seen the taunt coming and then pull a double switch back into my Rotom. But this turn, he's going to make a good play, knowing I would bring in Rotom, expecting the taunt. Expecting the Will-O-Wisp or the Recover. He's actually going to make a double switch of his own into his Victini, which means I'm going to have to make a risky play by bringing in my Slowbro. Thankfully, though, he does just go for the safe U-turn, which doesn't do entirely too much damage to my Slowbro. Unfortunately, though, he does bring in the Porygon 2, which means I am going to be forced to switch out. So this turn, he's going to make another good play, knowing I would want to bring in my Registeel to get up my rocks. Due to the fact that Hitmontop is gone, he's going to make a double switch into his Victini, and I do not carry Protect on this Registeel, which means I have to make another risky switch into my Slowbro. Thankfully, though, he goes for the V-Create and not the Bolt Strike, and I'm going to be able to take that, and that does about the same amount of damage that U-turn did, which should just tell you how powerful Choice Banded Victini is. But after the hit, I know that he is obviously going to want to switch out, but I'm still just going to make the safe play and go for the Scald as he ends up bringing in the Sableye. Unfortunately, I don't get the burn and I don't take him out, which really isn't too big of a deal, just because I know that this turn he is more than likely going to want to go for the Recover, so I can go for another Scald, maybe burn him. I don't burn him, which I'm really not mad that I'm not burning him, because in the end I'm still giving off pretty decent damage on the Sableye. So he's going to bring in the Porygon 2, then thinking that he would actually go for the Recover, what I'm going to do is actually end up switching back into my Registeel. Luckily, though, he didn't double switch into the Victini again, but he actually ends up going straight for the Thunderbolt. I guess maybe thinking I would go for a Scald, predicting him to bring in Victini, which isn't a bad play at all. But because I got that well-needed free switch into my Registeel, I can now get up my Stealth Rocks, which means I can kind of limit how threatening this Victini would be, but still it's going to be doing massive damage to my team. And I'm going to bring in my Hitmontop thinking that he would actually go for the Bolt Strike or the U-turn, but no, he goes straight for the V-Create, and the one time I don't bring in my Slowbro, he does go for the V-Create, and he's going to get off a huge hit on my Hitmontop, and that's max defense and max HP after the Intimidate. Good lord, Victini, can we calm down? Anyways, this turn, knowing that he wouldn't bring in Porygon 2 and knowing that he wouldn't bring in Sableye on the off chance that I did Toxic or Close Combat Porygon 2, and knowing that he would bring in Rhyperior, what I'm going to do is actually go for the Close Combat as I get off a pretty decent bit of damage on the Rhyperior. I mean, it did a lot less than I thought it would, but still, any bit of damage I get off from Rhyperior is going to be really handy. And expecting him just to get up his rocks or maybe go for an Earthquake, I'm going to make a switch into my Rotom as he goes for the Rock Blast, predicting that he actually only gets 2 hits, which plays a role later on in the battle. and I'm gonna go straight for the Leaf Storm because at this point anything that he brings in thanks to the rocks is gonna be one-shotted. As he brings in the Sableye as death fodder, this wouldn't be a problem if I had just gone for the more aggressive play earlier on in the battle against Sableye, which would have been Leaf Storm, but no, I did make the safe play, which was Volt Switch, and this turn he can just safely bring in the Sableye for fodder. Above that, he's going to be able to rack up burn damage on my Rotom. But as he brings in the Victini, I know that the switch in the Slowbro is so painfully obvious that I'm going to predict him to go for the Bolt Strike or the U-turn, and I'm actually going to bring in my Registeel. As he does go for the Bolt Strike, I take the hit. He does end up getting the paralysis, which actually really doesn't end up mattering at all, so I really wasn't too worried about that considering that Registeel is already really slow. But this turn, knowing that he more than likely would want to switch into Rhyperior, what I'm going to do is actually go for the safe Seismic Toss and not the Earthquake, just because Rhyperior does have the solid rock ability and Seismic Toss will always be doing 100 points of damage. And as I did predict him to go for the rocks, I went for a second Seismic Toss, and this turn, thinking that he would just go for the Earthquake, I'm going to be able to bring in my Slowbro, but he actually ends up going for the Rock Blast. I guess maybe thinking I would want to bring in my Rotom, but with Rotom being burnt and him having up rocks, I really need to be careful with my Rotom. So either way, my Slowbro is my best switch into this Rhyperior, and I am pretty positive that even if he does have the Mega Horn, I will be able to take one. So I'm just going to stay in and go for the safe Scald, as it turns out that he doesn't carry Mega Horn because he just ends up going for the Earthquake. He still does a pretty good amount of damage to my Slowbro, but nothing to the point where I know I won't be able to take another hit from that Victini if he does want to bring it in. But he just ends up bringing in the Porygon 2, which in the end is the safest play, as I'm just going to stay in. I'm going to go for the Side Shock because even if he takes out my Slowbro, I do still have Sucker Punch on my Hitmontop, which means as he brings in Victini, I can just go for Sucker Punch and knock that out. But he actually ends up getting paralyzed, which I'm not really too sure how much it matters. But now I am going to switch into my Rotom, expecting him to go for the Recover. That way I can go for a Close Combat or go for a Rapid Spin. But no, he does just go straight for the Thunderbolt, taking out my Hitmontop. And I'm going to bring in my Rotom, click Thunderbolt, knock out his Porygon 2 as he brings in the Victini. I know that his best move to lock himself into is going to be the Bolt Strike. So I have no choice but to just leave in my Rotom for fodder, allowing me to get a free switch into my Slowbro. And I believe at the amount of HP my Slowbro was at, I could have been able to take one Bolt Strike and still knock them out with the Scald, so in the end it wasn't too big of a deal. And as I take out the Victini, his last is going to be the Slowbro, which due to the fact that he is toxic, after he takes out my Slowbro, I can just, after he takes out my Registeel, I can just bring in Umbreon, just Wish, Protect, and just Foul Play until eventually he ends up dying off to the Toxic. And in the end, he's just going to end up running because he doesn't want to sit through this little stall fest. And that's going to be the 2-0 victory in my favor. So yeah, that was definitely one of the best UU battles I've had in a while, and one of the better Wi-Fi battles I've had in a while. So I really hope you all enjoyed. If you did, please feel free to leave a like, leave a comment down below, and feel free to subscribe to see more content. And with that, guys, I think I've taken up enough of your time. Enjoy the rest of your night, enjoy the rest of your day, and I am out of here. Later, everybody.